Now, so far we have looked at the warrior and the wizard, and here in chapter 3, we're going to unpack the will. Now, much of the frustration of all the wills out there, I'm going to break down everything the will does into 3 steps. So, step 1, the will thinks. Step 2 is that thought then rules, and step 3 is that ruling thought creates wholeness. So in these 3 steps, we can see how the will functions. The will thinks with the intention that that thought will rule and bring about a wholeness, a whole kingdom that is being ruled by the thoughts of the will. So a will creates thoughts that rule creation as a whole. So let's look at thinking, in particular, how the will perceives thinking. So first, as the will, you direct your thoughts as the beginning. So the will, the soul, the spiritual being, who you are as the will, you are the beginning, and the first thing you do is create a thought. The intention of that thought is to give direction as the creator to creation. Now, you're not the actual creator, but you're playing the role in the way you've been directed. You're going to then direct creation as the source. And here, wills need to be very wary. You are presenting yourself essentially as the sun for your created universe. There's no other way for you to live, but be aware there's a responsibility in this. If you're going to create a thought, you are then putting the seed of a sun out there, and you're at the center of that. You're the source, and creation is going to look to you. It's going to feed off of you, and it's going to create a world that reflects you as the source. You're also directing as the one. There can only be one will. You know this. Every will knows this. But it's important to recognize that you can be the one, but of your world. Can you see and rule the entire universe? You want to, as the will, but you're not yet there. You can continually expand and grow into the nature of the will as the Father, but you will never fully attain that. So there's a dichotomy here. There's only one will, God the Father, but you are the one He's created to express Him as the Father, the ruler, and you want to do that, and you can continually expand your skills as long as you want to. But understand, there is only one will, and you must embody that, you must express that by being the one to your created world, in the same way that the Father is the one ruler for the entire universe. So thoughts establish creation, but only the thinker rules. You want to rule, you create thoughts to rule, and you should do that. Why? Because you're expressing the one ruler, the Father Himself. That's the joy of the will. So let's look at ruling a little closer then. The masculine will rules through creation. So a simple picture of this is laws. Masculine wills create laws to rule creation. But he's not the law. He's created creations to do the ruling for him. Why? Because the masculine will, the man, wants to play the creator's role. And how does the creator rule? He makes creations to rule over other creations. That's how the masculine will rules creations, by creating creations that rule creations. However, the feminine will does things very differently. She doesn't rule over things, she rules over herself. Why? Because she wants to play the creation role, and she is the singular embodiment of all creation. So by ruling herself, her body in particular, she then rules everything that's attached to her. But she doesn't see them as attached to her, these other creations. She sees them as part of her. So by ruling herself, she ends up ruling all creation, which is why she wants to be seen. The feminine will always wants to be seen, because those who look at her, look to her, are part of her. And in a similar way, then, you realize that the masculine will hides behind his creations. But the feminine will wants to be seen, and the masculine will wants to go unseen. And there we see the dual nature of the will. And where do we learn these arts, the masculine and feminine arts of ruling? The eternal will, God the Father. If you notice, he is invisible, like the masculine will. But yet he also has this power, this rule over all of creation. All of creation is functioning somehow because he rules as both the masculine and the feminine. So all human wills are to come to him to learn both arts. And you're going to express one in particular, whether you're a man or a woman, but you want to know both. You want to express both. And you want to learn from God the Father in order to do that. So a will, a human will, learns to rule from the eternal will, God the Father. So let's see wholeness here. Let's look a little closer at wholeness. This is the ultimate end of the will. All thoughts that rule are intended towards making a wholeness, a whole kingdom, unified and one. Wholeness is singular, and this is why a will loves thoughts, because a single thought is singular. It's a single thought. Now, an amateur will makes a single thought and tries to push that on creation as the one thought. And of course, that doesn't work very well. A developing and mature will instead sees all that's here and then creates a whole thought that encompasses the whole kingdom and gives every person and every creation a particular place in that thought. That's a very big thought. But that is a mature, developed perception of how a will creates a singular thought which encompasses all of creation. It pulls all of creation in to a single thought. And as the will expands the mental skills, you can create a thought that will encompass all of creation, that will give everybody a role that's not dictatorial. You're not telling people the role they're supposed to play. You recognize their role and you help them discover that role. You help them unpack their skills and abilities, and then they feel like they've discovered what you already had within your mind. That's the higher arts of the will. The intention here is to create an orderly wholeness. You're not forcing people to do things in a specific way. You've created a thought that allows them to discover who they are and how they fit in this whole orderly existence. You can only maintain that if every person believes that they're the most important component of the whole. And then you realize that the will must have that perception first. You as the will must believe you're the most important component of all you create. And by having that perception, you can then give that to everyone and all the creations that are in your thought. And why would you come to that conclusion? Because that is the Creator's perception. God the Father says, "There is none like me." He is the most important component in all of creation. And as the will, you want to express that. So a will directs creation as the will. The Father directs the soul. So how do you learn how to perform the ruling arts? You don't study a book. You don't watch this video. You go to the Father himself, and he doesn't impart things indirectly. He does ruling right on you. He rules your soul personally, intimately, in the present moment. He rules you, and then he expects you to use your mind and create thoughts to express what he has already done to your soul. So as he directs you, you turn and direct creation.